The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Sitting here with my good friend, Keefer. I'm Tony Kurre, appropriately called the Keefer and Kurre Show here on Tony Kurre Radio. We can hear the show at least 5 times a week and wherever you get your favorite podcast. And something that we do talk about, we talk a lot of sports, of course, so we're a big show on ABC 3340. We're going to be, about a month out from college football coming up this Saturday. That first game is going to be Georgia-Clemson, so it's going to be awesome. So we have plenty of sports, but I consider you a friend of mine, and every time we do a show, I get a chance to get to know you a little bit more, and I know that you...
That's scary.
Well, it is, but sometimes, we'll have a conversation, and I'll think, just based on this conversation, that would have made a good show. Sometimes I wish I'm just rolling tape, just based on things we say. So I wanted to share something with you, and this is certainly something that we have talked about in the past, but we both have it in common. So it's something that I think this could be like you and me popping the top on a cold beer, sitting by the pool, and we're just shooting the shit. And we're talking about this kind of stuff. And maybe if we get some response from it, or someone wants to let us know how they feel about this particular subject, they let us know. So I'm at Publix yesterday, and I'm in the produce section, and this guy rolls up on me. He says, "I noticed you have some bananas in the front of your cart." I said, "Yeah." I said, "You know what they say about guys with bananas?" And I said,
"Oh my gosh,
no, I don't." He goes, "Well, in the world of grocery shopping, that means that you're available." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, if you take bananas and you put the fingers up, so the fingers are up. I guess it doesn't really matter, and you put them right there in the front, where you put all the soft stuff so it doesn't get crushed. That is your way in some bigger cities of letting women know that you like to meet them. It's kind of like a singles night. Like if you go to a place, and so now they're starting to go to these grocery stores, and you're starting to see all these people with bananas in their carts, and that means that they're available to talk. It's like a dating night. It's like the little secret of, hey, listen, I got bananas, you got bananas. Hey, you want to get together?" Now this is a dude that's talking to me. So first of all, I was like, okay, well, I'm obviously my bananas are not for you. I was not aware of that, but it did make me think twice, because there were several, and I don't go to crappy grocery stores. I go to the one on Cobble Mill Road, and it's a highfalutin town, man. There's some rich women up there, and so any given night, I will find myself maybe staying in Publix, maybe an extra 5 or 10 minutes just to go back on aisle 3 because I thought I missed something. I forgot the Nutella, that kind of thing. And really, I just kind of wanted to take a gander. So it seems like ever since I was talking to the banana guy, all of a sudden, all of these things are starting to pop up on my phone, on my internet, things like 15 traits of men who easily win women over without even trying. I got something this morning. It showed up from MSN.com. 16 things Amish girls can't do that we take for granted. And I'm getting all these different. And I'm trying to think. I wasn't on a porn site recently. I wasn't on a dating site recently. I haven't not been on. But all these signs are starting to come to me. So I went to a wedding yesterday, and I guess it was Saturday, and So I've got a lot of dating things that are popping into my head. So you and I talk about women a lot. And so I wanted to share this next story with you, because this one just popped up just as we were doing this. What single women wish divorced men knew about dating. Are you in? You want to hear that?
Yeah, absolutely. I need to hear it. I was along the same lines. That stuff pops up for me all the time. I guess they have us identified.
Well, yeah.
But, on YouTube the other day, I was trying to watch a football podcast about SEC Media Days, and how the ad comes up before for some product, this was somebody peddling some kind of secret thing for older men to be this tiger that can instantly, become ready to go and last for a long time. It was supposedly like a 22-year-old woman talking about how disappointed she was in all of her relationships. And now she's engaged to some 64-year-old dude who's just an absolute tiger and keeps her satisfied all the time.
There you go.
And they're going to reveal the secret if you go to the next page. I mean, I get that crap all the time, Tony, from all different directions.
No, so it's like they know us. And listen, depending on what we're looking at, I get that. Like I just I got some Skechers shoes. Some of these no slip shoes. These are great, by the way. These slip on shoes. I love them. You don't have to bend over and touch your shoes anymore. And so I got some Skechers shoes. And so whenever you go to the Skechers site, the minute I get off that site, I get a text saying, hey, thanks for coming by. We're going to give you an extra 15% off your next pair of shoes if you get back on us right now. That kind of thing. So they're tracking us, and I get that tracking, and I it's weird because you will have just walked into Home Depot, and the minute you get in your car, something will come across your phone, and it'll be they don't have your phone number, they don't have your information, you don't have an account with them, and next thing you know, they're tracking your phone. I get that.
Yep. Big Brother is alive and well.
Yeah. So whenever I can get some help, and I've mentioned to you, and I don't really care if this woman's listening or not, but there's this woman that I've been kind of courting a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, courting, because that's kind of her name. Anyway, she's used to be a cheerleader. She's 53. She's a looker, and so for guys like us. And this is where you and I be sitting around the pool shooting the shit. I'm not even pretending we're doing a show here. I'm just going to talk to you.
I wish we had the beer part of it going on.
I got some in the fridge. So the first thing I did was listen, I've used my 20 years of expertise in marriage, and then all my dating, and then you think back, boy, if I had known what I know now, back in my teens and my 20s, man, I would have killed it, right? So I feel like I've got all this information now. So now it's time to get back out there, because it's been 4 years since I've had a divorce, and I'm like, I think I'd like to have the company of a lady, and I know you do too. So maybe we can kind of work this together as buddies. And so I get this phone call from her, and we're supposed to go out, and she cancels on me. Because she has a 16-year-old daughter, and her daughter had some issues. I said, no problem. No big deal. So we're reset up the next week. And then she cancels on me again, because her mother, had some issues, and she's an only child. So I'm like, okay. And then, so we set up a lunch the following week. And then the following week, she calls about an hour before lunch. She says, listen, I was doing work, and I'm running out of time. I'm only going to have about 30 minutes, and I really don't want to just make this a lunch thing. I really want to sit down and talk with you, have some time with you, blah, blah, blah. Can we reschedule? So I'm like, and so, I'm 58 years old. I know that I'm already physically, and this is when I asked the question. So listen, I said, are you physically attracted to me? Because she's seen me on television, and I've known what this girl's looked like for 30 years, right? But you know how it is on Facebook. You met a girl 20, 30 years ago, and then you go back, and all of a sudden you're thinking, wow, and then they never look like they did 20 years ago. And in most cases, 9 out of 10 times, they look nothing like, in a bad way. You're like, wow, what the hell happened to you? You were so hot back in 1993, and then you realize that was 34 years ago. She said, yeah, I'm attracted to you. And she goes, I think you're very handsome. And I said, well, I think you're attractive too. And I said, that's the most important thing for a guy. If we can get past that part where I find you physically attractive, because we're visual animals. If I find you physically attractive, then we've got a big piece of this pie already solved. I can deal with a little crazy. I can deal with some baggage. So we set up another date this past Wednesday, and on Tuesday, she shatters the heel of her right foot. She fell down her driveway, and she just absolutely, she's sending me videos from ER, and her heel is just cracked, and she doesn't have to have surgery. So I'm thinking to myself, So I texted her last night, and we text. She texted me in the morning. Hey, hope you have a great day. Kind of real sweet, nice. But again, we've been going back and forth for a couple months, and I still haven't seen this girl. I've seen her on Facebook, so I know what
it's
she
been
looks
a month.
Like. So it's like, yeah. Is this a Manti Te'o thing or something? Am I dealing with a 28-year-old man or something?
Is it a dude? Yeah.
So I said, listen. I said, we're 0 for 4 here. And in most cases, I'd say, it ain't happening. One of us would have normally said, okay, you blow me off 4 times now. I don't want to be taken advantage of. But she writes me really nice things. She says she's very interested in me. She wants to get to know me. She said she feels like God placed me in her life. All this big stuff. And so I said, do you want me to keep? Or are we still doing this? Am I still supposed to keep trying? And she said, if you don't want to, I certainly understand. But yes, I want you to continue to check. So I'm going to give it another shot. I'm going to go for step 5. But, while I'm doing that and trying to chase her down. So I said, well, what's the next step? She goes, call me next week. We'll go out. I said, okay. So in the meantime, I'm getting these articles and maybe they'll help me along. So what single women wish divorced men knew about dating. Number 1, don't talk about your ex-wife.
That's obvious.
Well, it seems obvious. And again, depending on, did you just, first of all, are you still married to her and you're separated? Did you just divorce her? Was it amicable? Was there still love bearing in it? Or has it, in my case, been like 4 years? And then you got some people that have been divorced for 4 or 5 years. They're still not over it. I'm over it, but I'm like, it's difficult because in most cases, again, I've never been through this. It's me my first date in 30 something years. So when I'm sitting down talking to somebody, they want to get to know you. And so I've got 58 years of my life to describe, and 23 of them were with a woman that I obviously loved. And so it's kind of hard not to talk about your ex-wife. Don't try to have sex with this woman. Don't try to have sex with this 1 hour into the first date.
Obvious also.
She says, I understand that some divorced men have been sexually deprived, many of them for years, but don't be so anxious. Stop trying to close the deal an hour after you meet us. That's not romantic. It's just creepy. All right. So I will say that there are a lot of, this is really uncomfortable to talk about. But I will tell you this. I find that, that women that go out with guys like us that are divorced men know that's probably been a long time since we've been laid. And we get a lot of mixed signals from all these dating apps because to me, everything I get is like every woman out there wants to have sex. I can go on any site and all of a sudden in the corner of the phone, it flashes up and it says, woman 3.7 miles away wants to meet you. And I'm like, and I'm like, how's that possible? What, who is this? Where's that? And so we're always, and then I got my friends who are on apps and they got like a different girl for each app. And all they do is they just have hookups. They don't even go on dates. And so, so I could be a little guilty of that. All right. Don't be cheap. It's funny because, you're like, yeah, well, no doubt these make sense, but I'm actually learning something here. We get it. The divorce cleans you out for now, but inviting us out for drinks because you don't want to pay for dinner is not exactly foreplay. You don't invest in a new car if you can't afford to make the monthly payments. The same goes with dating. If you don't have the disposable income to pay for a meal or two, then maybe you need to save your pennies before you get back into the dating game again. Your thoughts?
So far, Tony, I'm 3 for 3. I don't talk about my ex-wife unless they ask me, which happens a lot of times. Yep. Number 2, I don't go into it because I have this dying desire to immediately initiate physical contact. And number 3, I am probably the prototype, not cheap individual. I go top shelf all the time, even if it's not even that desirable prospect.
Let me ask you this. You meet a very attractive woman who's in her 40s or 50s, but she lives in an apartment. She drives a car. It's not a beat up, but I mean, she's not driving a brand new Tahoe. And she's working a $15 to $20 an hour job in her 40s and 50s. You have a problem with that?
No.
Because a lot of women would have a problem with that if that's the guy.
Yeah.
If the guy's driving a beat up thing and he's living in an apartment and he's working a job.
Okay. You're saying from the guy's standpoint.
Yeah. Do you have a problem dating a girl like that?
No.
Okay. Because I think that's where we're different. In this particular case, this woman is just assuming that we're going to buy dinner, and I would buy dinner. I always buy dinner.
Now it might not go over any further than that, but I'm not going to disqualify somebody right off the bat because of their circumstances. I guess I'm one of those dinosaurs that, I want to kind of get to know somebody and let that process tell me what my next move is going to be. I don't go in with preconceived notions. Now, you see, you get involved with these train wrecks that just have this series of unfortunate events, and all they do is tell you in the first date how bad they've had it and how they've been mistreated. And I mean, you can kind of see the pattern there that some people just have that kind of victim mentality. I'll probably try to separate myself from that, but I don't go in with any preconceived notions whatsoever. And that's kind of one of the reasons I got kind of burned out on the whole dating thing. I'm just at a point of my life, Tony, where I don't want to sell myself again. I think my resume is established. I think I'm who I am. And if you can't recognize that, you're probably not somebody I need to be with.
Well, this is very unfortunate, this number 3 here, because some dudes do get wiped out by divorce. And sometimes they lose the house, they lose everything, and they have to
you do. It took me forever to get back on track. Yeah.
Hey, listen, the last 5 years of my life have been unbelievable. I mean, I need no pity here. I don't want any empathy or sympathy. I lost everything, and I had to start all over.
It is what it is.
But
see, unlike you, I've been divorced 19 years now, which is staggering.
But if you're
I lived in some really humble circumstances for the first 6 or 7 years until I got back on track.
I have too. I had probably one of the rough Christmases of my life about 3 years ago where I didn't know how I was going to pull it off. Somehow I pulled it off with 3 kids. But it's if she's sitting there saying, I need to make sure I have some money in my pocket so I can afford to buy you dinner before I actually go on a date with you, that's a problem.
Yes.
Because what I'm finding here is, at this age, normally, like when I'm younger, and again, I haven't dated 30 something years. I know that's a long time, so I don't know how it changes. But right now, I'm really comfortable, and I know you are too. I'm really comfortable just talking to someone on a phone the first few times just to find out if we're somewhat compatible.
Yeah.
And if we have a phone conversation for like 2 or 3 hours, then that's great. Then I know we got something going on here. I'm like, wow, we were on the phone for an hour and a half, because I can't remember the last time I had an hour and a half phone call. I did with this young lady the other night. And I could have easily said, listen, I'm tired, I want to go to bed, but I didn't. I wanted to continue to talk to her. Now, it could have been because I was lonely. Maybe because I haven't had a woman on the other end of a phone conversation saying the things she was saying to me, which were very nice. So I just, I got to the point where, like, screw the date. Let's just pick up the phone and give me a call. That's where I think you have to be careful with texting too, because texting is nice. It's a nice way of just letting you know I'm thinking about you, kind of thing. But if you want to talk for more than 5 or 6 minutes and you're not in the middle of a meeting or something, pick up the phone, just call. I know it's hard, but don't be a playa. When I first posted online profile, I was hit with a tsunami of 50-something players treat me like they were casting for a porno movie. Every question was, what's your wildest fantasy, or do you have a kink you always wanted to try? Let's make this simple. If you insist on behaving like a pimp, pretend that you're my parole officer. Assume that I'm not impressed, that I'm looking for any excuse to send you back to the big house. That's true. And again, this is one of those things where we as men are sent a lot of weird, strange signals from a lot of these dating apps. And normally, if you want a guy to sign up for a dating app, you make it look like he's going to get some, like on the first or second date. It's just what attracts men, because men, that's what a lot of men like. A lot of men look for it. And again, like this woman said, chances are if he's divorced, it's probably been a long time since he's been with anybody. And so that gets him in the door. Maybe that gets him to sign up for Match.com or something. I don't know. And then don't tell us that you don't want to be exclusive or monogamous before you even had sex with us. And this is the most common reason I don't make it to a second date. It's a killer for women because what we want at this stage in our lives is a little romance. We're not focused on marriage and children. For many of us, that ship has sailed. We want to have fun, to feel desired, to flirt, and not think about beyond tonight. Listen, we both made it this far. We're not young anymore, but we're not old either. We don't need to rush into sex or commit a relationship. Just be with us in the moment and slow your roll. That's probably the best thing that I've read on any article in the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Let me interject this though.
Please.
That sounds great, and that's exactly where I am. The romance part is part of the process of realizing this is somebody you want to spend quality time with. I'm down with that. I am. There's probably a billboard in my honor at FTD or whatever other flower thing. I've probably been the greatest customer. People that I hardly even know, I'll send flowers or some kind of gift because I love the romantic part of establishing a relationship. But, I even see my son is 32. He's my engineer. He's a technical genius. He's an accomplished young man. He owns his own house. He's been getting involved in recent years in the dating situation. And Tony, even in this era, for people that are 25 years younger than us, he's having all kinds of issues establishing relationships because women tell you these are the things they want, but he gets the sense because he's not aggressive and he doesn't initiate physical contact, or, he said he came home all kind of depressed a few weeks ago, and he'd probably kill me if he knew I was talking about this, but he came in kind of depressed. He says, at the end, it was just awkward. Even the kiss goodnight is an issue in 2024. Wow. And now he feels like he's kind of blowing it with this one girl because, they haven't had any contact after 2 or 3 outings because it's just not, it hasn't seemed right. So they tell you all this stuff that they just want the flowery parts. But if you don't make some kind of a move and it's always on the guy, then they think there's something wrong with you. So I think I see a lot of irony and hypocrisy in a lot of this stuff because, they kind of size you up by your actions. And, I don't know about you, but I've just never been anyone. And I absolutely apologize to my son if he gets this from me, but I was never somebody who aggressively tried to initiate any kind of, contact with another person because I just feel like, that I'm uncomfortable doing that.
No, I'm so glad you said that because there's a lot of different things that a woman can do to show signs to men that they're interested.
Yeah, drink heavily is one.
Drink heavily, touch the elbow. There's all kinds of really small things that women can do. If you take your hand and brush the side of my face, I'll melt. And guys just don't get that.
There's little signals, sure.
And it's not to say that we don't want to take the first step. That's interesting you say that because I have found myself, much like you say, and by saying, listen, I don't want to have to do a resume builder again, this, that, and now there are a lot of women would get there and would not be interested in you because they feel like you would be trying it. And it's not that you don't want to try. It's just that you've done all these things. It's out there and you just want to get moving. You're just like, you know what?
Yeah,
you're nice. I'm nice. Let's go do something we both enjoy together. Let's have some laughs and see where it goes. Instead of having to sit there and, write out your profile and send pictures and swipe right or swipe left or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I have found something that, and maybe this is because I didn't get a lot of it in my marriage, but I've told the 2 or 3 women that I've had conversations with that I wanted to date or I wanted to go out with. I've told them, hey, listen, don't be afraid to call me. I like that. I for 20 years, I came home and never had a wife that said, how was your day at work, honey? I never got that. I was the one that always held her hand first, and she was the one that always let it go first. I haven't been going back on these things. There were red flags everywhere that I probably should have seen, but my dumb ass just thought, okay, we'll work through this. And I just figured love would get us through anything. It didn't. And then, marriage counseling, that lasted 3 weeks and then she didn't show up again. But I do think it's important at our age. It's different than when you're in our 20s and 30s. And I hope women understand that we've been chasing for a long time. Men have been chasing, we're a lion and we've been chasing gazelles for 30, 40 years. And our ass is fucking tired. And sometimes I want to sit underneath a tree and look off into the safari, and I want a nice female lion, a lioness, to lay beside me and say, "Hey, how you doing? It's a beautiful sunset tonight, isn't it?" And just be done with it. I'm tired of running sometimes. And at the age of 58, I think I deserve that. I think I put my time on that, and I'm here. I'm open. I'll share everything with you. But as far as in playing games and having to run your ass down, that's why this 0 for 4 thing's kind of got me wigged out, because I'm telling my friends, are like, dude, what are you doing? 4 times now. And I'm like, then why does she keep acting like she's interested in me? Maybe this is just life of a 55-year-old. Maybe this is just what life is for a 50-year-old who's got a 16-year-old daughter who's, got a lot of things going on in life, or maybe dating's just not a priority in her life right now. But again, if it happens, it happens, no big deal. But I don't ever want to be in a situation. I don't ever want to be with someone that don't want to be with me. And I'm along the same lines with you. I'm not one of these guys. You'll never hear me say, well, I had to ask her out 4 or 5 times before she finally went out with me. And then we fell in love and married for 30 years. That is never going to happen to me, because I'm going to ask a woman out once. And if she doesn't say yes and wants to play a game, then I'm not going to ask her again, because I don't want to. Rejection is the worst thing that a guy can go through. We hate rejection. It hurts.
It's why I've been a non-combatant for so long, because I just don't accept that in my life now. As you know, we're trying to get our media empire built. When I'm rejected for even an appointment with somebody to talk about partnerships and doing some things outside of the whole social scene, this is business. I'm just at a point where I am very intolerant of rejection of any kind. I feel like I'm established to the point where I should be considered legitimate. It's one of the great complaints of my life. And sometimes, I'll even, as you've mentioned, I'll be inclined to sometimes act out my frustration by writing some verses or some poetry or something. And once in a while, I actually post that on the internet, and people criticize me because they think I'm complaining about, lack of success with women and females. But it's more than that. It's at a point of my life where I feel like I'm legitimate and I should be respected for what I've accomplished and who I am. Again, I'm not blowing my own horn, but I'm just simply stating that I have very little tolerance for people who don't recognize, that I'm deserved of some respect and courtesy and consideration, and should not be just abjectly rejected. So, that's a personal thing of mine. I'm sure a lot of psychologists and others would shoot a bunch of holes in that, but that's legitimately how I feel at this stage.
And women have the right to feel the same exact way.
Absolutely.
They've gave motherhead, to 3 or 4 different children. They've been through hell of a divorce or a marriage or whatever they've been through, and they certainly, they deserve to. They put their time into. I think it's just a matter. We play games. I mean, we play game for so long. There's a certain amount of games you have to play. I mean, I get it. There's some things you have to do. Is it smart to call a woman 5 minutes after you just dropped her off at her house and let her know what a great time you had? I don't know. Maybe I'm at a point now where I'm so faith driven and I'm with God. I'm like, you know what? This is what I want to do. And if this scares her away, then it wasn't meant to be. We remember when we used to get a girl's number and we couldn't call her for 2 days.
Oh yeah,
that whole garbage. I'm like, I'm so far over that right now. And going and acknowledging that this goes for both of us. We have a lot of life to live. I guess my whole way to kind of put a bow on this is, when you're dating in your teens, your 20s, you don't have a lot of life to share. Because you haven't had a lot of life go on in your life. You haven't had that great job. You haven't had that wife. You haven't had a child in your life. You probably haven't moved yet. You haven't lost the life of a parent. hell, you may not even have a special team that you root for yet at that team. And so then fast forward and all of a sudden you're getting back out there in your mid 50s or mid 40s. And then you have all this life, it's like you sit down with them and you're like, it's like cleaning up the garage. You got to start with the first box. You just don't dive in and start throwing stuff all over the place. You got to pick up the first box. And it's going to take a hell of a long time. And you may end up sitting there and finding an old box of pictures and you may spend a whole day looking through it. But you got to start with the first box.
It's a great analogy. Yeah,
exactly. And so you just start with, what do you do for a living? I mean, just like you would on any other day. And then, eventually you're going to find out about the exes and the kids and the, what they're into and, their dreams and their wishes and their fears and all that other crap. But yeah, I mean, it's like sometimes I feel like I've got a dam in my head and the water's just kind of pushing up towards it. I mean, and I have to be really careful to let it out slowly because there's a lot of, she could say something that could trigger me something and man, the dam is broken. All of a sudden I'm just I'm going knee deep in something that happened 30 years ago that is a real real trigger for me. So,
well, it bothers me, Tony, that I never ever, after my divorce, my kids were still at that time, I think 11 or 12 and 8, and there was no way, even though my wife made a terrible decision that she wanted this to come to an end and not work through some rough times, and she tells me to this day that she made a mistake by doing that. Wow. Which, it is nice after the fact. But the point was, I was not going to miss the most important thing in my life that I recognized that time were my sons. And I was not going to miss their life. I had no interest, literally no interest those next 10 years after my divorce of cranking up any kind of other relationship. I didn't pursue it. I didn't think about it. All I thought about was being a father while my kids were kids. And I was not going to miss their games. I was not going to miss their activities. I was not going to miss the interaction of taking them on vacations and doing things of that nature. So I was basically a participant in the whole area of that until they got into adulthood. And then when I started to dabble in it, I was absolutely shocked. And I remain shocked to this day how difficult it is at this stage, because I never thought it would be that way. There's so many people back in circulation after marriages end. There's people that are all kinds of different circumstances. I thought there would be just a variety of different directions to go. But I arguably think it's even more difficult at this stage than it was when we were younger. Absolutely. Because you're dealing with so many other influences in the lives of people you're interested in. I've been, full disclosure, I've been basically madly in love with somebody for the last 9 years who's very involved in my life, but is not interested in me from that standpoint. Yeah. And what it does is it really kind of takes away your desire to even try to crank up another relationship, because that's still kind of lingering there. It's not somebody I can just part company with because we're involved in a lot of different things. But the bottom line is, when you do, go ahead.
Does she know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You know me, Tony. Yeah. I'm full disclosure.
No, I know who it is. Yeah. And it's, yeah.
And every time I express it, it seems to even hurt my cause more, because it's like she doesn't have any respect for me because I feel that way about her.
Yeah.
So I had a serious relationship crank up 4 or 5 years ago with a woman who was all in. I mean, was just eager to move things along. She would come. She lived a little bit out of town, but she'd come in for the weekend, and I'd say, "What do you want to do this weekend?" And she says, "Well, we can go by Diamonds Direct. I hear it's really nice." So I appreciated her humor, but I had no intention of going by Diamonds Direct because I was not really committed to her. And I think maybe that's kind of on both sides one of the things that bogs the process down, because I guess men and women both have an idea of what they ideally want, and if they can't achieve that, then others just don't seem to measure up. I don't know. That's my situation. I don't know how you look at something like that.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad you mentioned the fact that you went 10 years without, because it's been 4 or 5 years for me. People tell you, man, enjoy every moment of every day with your kids because it goes by so quick. We'll take that and cut it in half. I just thank the Lord that I got 7 on, 7 off. I certainly want my kids to spend, as much time with their mom as they possibly can.
You're a great dad, and I want people to know how much effort you make to make your kids' lives outstanding, and
thank you.
And in challenging circumstances, because you did not have, well, of course, at the time of my divorce, it was not very, very pleasant. I absolutely, when she filed for divorce, I refused to participate. I didn't get a lawyer. I didn't acknowledge. I just said, I'm not going to be part of this because you're making a terrible mistake and you're blowing up our family for stupid reasons. Mainly at that time, I had just the only career turbulence I'd ever had. And she acknowledges now that she shouldn't have gone that direction. But when I realized that our relationship was over, if you've got kids, if you're listening to this and you go crank up another marriage and try to blend families and all that stuff, you're never going to have the relationship with your kids that you had. My dad did that to me when I was 12 years old. He left us for another woman. And, they say, well, it has nothing to do with you. It had everything to do with me. This was my father who bolted the course, and it affected our relationship the rest of our lives. And there was no way in hell I was going to let that happen with my sons. And I look now, the relationship I have with both of them, what great young men they are, how successful they are. And Tony, it was worth if I never have another serious relationship, and those 10 years kind of cost me that opportunity, it was well worth it.
Amen, brother. I love everything you said. Yeah, when to this woman I'm trying to go out with, every time she says no, it's going to be another 2 weeks because I'm not going out on my weeks with my kids.
Yeah,
I'm not doing it. First of all, my kids are pushing me along. My kids are like, Dad, you need to start looking after yourself. You need to get back out there. And I'm like,
yeah, sure.
What? You let Dad take care of that. I'll take care of that because I know that my daughter's only going to be 12 for a year. And I've got a special needs son who cognitively is about an 8 or 9 year old, but he's 17. And I have a 20-year-old who's going to Clemson. And I want to be every part of their lives. Hey, listen, I'll be honest with you. I'm 58 years old. I start looking at my daughter, and when she's 25, I'm going to be 71 years old. And I don't even know what the hell I'm going to be. I don't know what I'm going to feel like. I don't know if I'm going to get out of a chair when I'm 71 years old. Seriously. I'm having a hard enough time scratching my own ass now. So I'm like, so I'm going to get all the time I can while physically I feel fit. We're going on vacation in a couple of weeks. I've taken my kids on vacation every year since my first son was part of our family. We adopted him 20 years ago, and I will knock over a bank to ensure that I take my kids on vacation. I don't give a shit if I'm broke. I don't care if I need to go take a loan out. Thank goodness I've got great friends that have the means and the support that they take care of me. But I'm gonna have those times with my kids, and if someone doesn't understand that, then they can get over.
They're not a prospect.
I've got 14 days out of the month where I'm sitting over here twiddling my thumbs. I got plenty of time for someone else, but when I got my kids, my thumbs ain't twiddling, brother. I'm hanging with my kids. So God bless you and what you shared with us today, because I feel the same way about the kid thing. If anything, I spend more time, and there's a codependency there of love for my kids because I feel like shit that I put them through this. I feel horrible that I put them through this. I feel terrible that I couldn't figure this out, because I know that divorce is 50-50. It's never 90-10. It takes 2 to get married, and it takes 2 to get a divorce. And I feel horrible that I had to put my children through the last 3 or 4 years. And so I'm going to do everything I can to make it up to them. And if that means showering them with more love than they can handle, then I have to get over.
Yeah.
So, hey, great stuff, my man. Okay, so that was kind of like, did we even do a show here? We're just two guys talking about our hopes and dreams and fears, and we hope you enjoyed that. Maybe there's another 50-year-old out there. Yeah, and I'll tell you something else too, real quick. I did this at church yesterday. Man, when I see a woman that I'm really attracted to, the first thing you got to do is you got to look at that ring finger, man. You got to look at the ring finger, and that's the first thing I do. And if there's a ring on it, I'm like, damn it, there's another one going. I start telling myself, well, maybe she's widowed, and maybe she still wears the ring, or maybe they're separated and she still wears the ring, or maybe she just, you know what I mean? But that's what us guys do, and when the minute we see a woman without a ring on, we ask her out and we find out she's a lesbian. So there you have it. Which happened to me last week, by the way.
Yeah.
It happened out of Publix with my bananas.
Yeah, I you started this off with the banana thing. I'm going to head over to Publix as soon as we get done and fill up my cart with bananas and see what happens. But yeah, it's a tough game out there because, as I mentioned, I thought it would be easier because there's so many guys our age that really have to go through this stupid thing where they got to chase somebody a lot younger to try to prove to themselves they're still a viable person. And so many great women get abandoned at this stage because their husband's an idiot and doesn't invest in the second half of their relationship and instead pursues a 25 or 30-year-old in some ridiculous quest to recapture their youth. But those women are so damaged by that experience that you and I are left to account for it. It's like, remember the song Innocent Man by Billy Joel?
Oh, yeah.
It is the anthem for people like in our situation.
We're right here.
Of like, hey, I know you got hurt. I know you got beat up and abandoned by other men, but I'm not that guy. I think that's a message women need to be fully understand. Just because we share a gender with our compatriots, that doesn't mean you and I are that guy. And it just seems to me like we're all kind of put in that same bucket, and it's really unfortunate.
Well, you know what? I know that it will happen in time. Normally, I don't really pray for relationships. I prayed for my marriage, obviously. I pray for my kids, but I never really prayed to meet somebody. So recently, I've kind of thrown it out there, and God usually, He takes care of me. So normally, and I know it's all in His time, but something's going to happen. So I'm going to keep you updated on my dates. So I'm over for
right
4.
back at you.
I'm over for 4, and we'll see if we can get something tonight.
Yeah. Well, you know what happens if you're if you go like 0 for 5 or 0 for 6 in the big leagues, you get sent down to the minors. Maybe a quick trip down to the minors, Tony, and you hit 10 or 12 home runs might turn everything around.
It wouldn't hurt my average. I got news for you.
I mean, you play at a lesser level, but you have a lot of success.
That's true. Was Pete Rose Jr. was he was in the minors for 13 years, wasn't he?
He really was.
But his dad wasn't.
No, Pete didn't spend hardly any time in the bushes. So
no.
Anyway,
right,
this has been fun.
Appreciate you, man. I'll talk to you next week.
All right, Tony.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.